7 International News Review now. We'll start with the Times. It's writing that Eurozone leaders are expressing fury, it says, because Greece has failed to table proposals on its debt crisis at an emergency summit. Apparently, the country's new finance minister arrived with bullet points which are jotted down on note paper from his hotel room.
It's budget day in the UK. This is the Financial Times looking at the fact there could be a shift to a lower welfare, lower tax Britain. Cuts to benefits are being described by some as very difficult. South China Morning Post next. The continuing slide here in the markets on the mainland and in Hong Kong. The article saying that the government's rescue measures haven't yet restored confidence. The Washington Post website has Pentagon leaders saying the US hopes to boost its training program for moderate Syrian rebels to fight Islamic State. But of 6,000 Syrian volunteers, only 1,500 passed the vetting process and only 100 have been retained. Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is to invest $10 billion in Russia. This is in Gulf News reporting that the money will help rebuild the diplomatic relationship between Riyadh and Moscow. Cornelia Meyer is here this morning, CEO of the business consultancy MRL Corporation. Good morning, Cornelia. Good morning, Cornelia.
Good morning.
I misspoke earlier. I thought that the Greek finance minister had taken a napkin into the meeting, but he took a little bit of notepaper from his hotel room. But you know what? Maybe that's all he needed. They know what they want. They know they probably won't get it. What do you think?
I don't think quite. I mean, after the European finance ministers and heads of state, after the referendum, expected Greece to come back and really specify exactly what they wanted. And we've been speaking about this so many times. We said the Europeans are getting exasperated because there was never enough specificity. There was always headlines. And now they really need specificity. But this is really serious because if they decide that it's a no-go on Sunday, then the emergency liquidity assistance, the ELA, will be capped. And they think it's about only $1 billion in cash left in the banking system. So Greece will really run out of money, which means they import most of the food. They import all of the fuel. And they import all of the medicine. So this is real hardship. And as Europeans, we have to ask ourselves, you know, this is sort of the way down the road of becoming a failed state. Do we want a failed state? What can we do to assist so it doesn't become a failed state? One. And the other one we should also not forget is one thing that people always forget. This is a Nato member country. So you know, on one hand, one doesn't understand the exasperation of the Europeans. On the other hand, somehow we need to find a dignified solution to the problem.
Do you think that's what Jean-Claude Trichet means when he says, you know, an exit of Greece from the Eurozone is geopolitical?
Yes, I think that's what he means, and you can see that the people who were at the very beginning of the euro, the French, they still want to keep them in. You also see that quite a few people were very concerned on the southern rim. You know, especially the Spaniards with Podemos. They said, you know, we have Syriza-like people nipping at our heels. So you know, how do we handle this? So I think a lot of people just simply don't know how to go forward.
It's interesting, the IMF in the past few days, since the referendum, it seems to have taken a bit of a back seat here. And Christine Lagarde was very circumspect about her statement. She said, we will look at providing assistance to Greece if requested, almost sort of accepting that possibly Greece may not even want any more help from the IMF. Can it survive without the IMF?
I don't think Greece can survive without the IMF. It can't. I think Greece does need to find some sort of assistance. As I said, you know, they import most of the food, all of the fuel. And if cash is down to $1 billion in the banking system, this is really very serious.
Okay, let's have a look at the Financial Times, and it also has Greece on the front page and China as well, the markets, the three stories of the day, and the UK budget. We're looking at the UK budget. As ever, lots of speculation, but George Osborne has actually been quite open in the run-up to this budget about big cuts on the way?
I think so much has been leaked that I really wonder, does he need to make an announcement? It seems that we know most of it. But this is, I think, the first time in nearly 20 years that we have a fully only Conservative Party budget. So he is trying to probably make a monumental, announcement, and he wants lower taxes, he wants less, $12 billion pounds cuts in welfare over time, not right away. That will make it quite hard on certain segments of the population who do need welfare for their support.
This article there does talk about the personal tax allowance could be raised, which they've done a few times already, and they may raise it even more today because he has got some sort of fiscal wiggle room apparently. Yes. And that will help those on lower incomes to a great degree, won't it?
It will help them to a great degree, but it will help everybody. It is not a measure geared towards the ones at the lower level, because it will help you, me, it will help, the chairman of a big bank, it will help everybody.
Therefore, it will help the UK economy whilst it is trying to sort of stomach quite difficult welfare cuts.
Yeah. It will help the economy. It's just, it has become very difficult if you are on a low income to live in a place like London or even Manchester, if you're a nurse. I mean, really important professions, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, how do you afford housing?
Yes, and that's actually been a problem for nurses, teachers, those sorts of professions for some time, living in big cities and the cost of living.
And we need them. I mean, they're vital people in in society, not just the economy.
How serious is the problem on the stock markets in China? You've been covering this story for the past couple of days as well.
It's very serious. It has lost 28% since June 12th. So in 3 weeks, it's lost nearly 30%. It's very serious. 2.1 trillion are sort of in there, which are bought on borrowed money, so leveraged speculation. So it's quite serious. But we always knew that there was some sort of a bubble. I've been looking at the portfolio of the Chinese banks, and I've been worried for quite some time.
Is there a concern about contagion in the area or not?
I think there is a concern about contagion in the area because China is just so important. And it's also important for some other places. If you look at China is a big consumer of luxury goods. So all these people who now feel a lot poorer will not go out and buy their Hermes or Gucci bags, which I can't feel very sorry about, but for those companies it is a concern.
So we've got a couple of minutes left. Let's talk about the Arab world. And the Americans don't seem to be having too much success in recruiting volunteers to fight Islamic State, which could be a critical factor eventually.
It could be a critical factor, but we've also talked about this many times. When you go into places like Syria, it's not like Switzerland or like Britain. It's not clearly demarcated lines. So I really wonder how much their efforts really can do in sending their own warriors in there. And I'm always skeptical in sending warriors and arms into conflict zones, especially when they're failed states and just so dysfunctional. So we don't. Yeah, it's really a tough call.
Yeah, but it seems to be America's main strategy is that they're not going to send troops, so they want other people to do their fighting for them.
Yeah, but it's difficult.
And Saudi sovereign fund to invest $10 billion into Russia. Your take on this partnership?
I think it's very good, and it was sort of, you saw that the Deputy Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, went there during the Russian Economic Forum, and they had talks. They're trying to get closer again, and business is probably a good way to become closer. Russia is important to the kingdom in the sense, of their stance on Syria and pro-Assad, and clearly the kingdom is not pro-Assad. So starting to engage with them to see how to come solutions, and also for the rest of the world, not a bad thing, because we need to talk to Russia on Syria, we need to talk to Russia on Iran, on various things. So having some conduit of talking to each other is probably a very good thing.
Cornelia, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts this morning. I know you always enjoy it when we include Arab stories, and this one we thought was very interesting. 10 billion going to Russia. It's important for the Saudi economy as well as the Russian.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you very
for
much.
coming in.
You too. See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
We'll be back
Bye.
in a few minutes.